Scenes of jubilation in Tel Aviv and Gaza as Israel and Hamas agreed to a U.S.-brokered peace deal that could end 2 years of devastating war. Families of hostages celebrate hopes of reunion while Palestinians welcome long-awaited relief from relentless bombardment. Donald Trump hails this agreement as a different world moment, but tough talks still lie ahead. That's our focus of discussion today in World Now. Thank you for joining us. I'm Olamide Adeyemi. Israel and Hamas have agreed to the first phase of a U.S.-brokered peace plan, raising hopes for an end to the 2-year war in Gaza. Now, under this deal, Hamas will release the 20 remaining Israeli hostages still alive, while Israel is to withdraw troops to an agreed line and free nearly 2,000 Palestinian detainees. Aid deliveries are also expected to surge, with 400 trucks allowed into Gaza daily in the first week. U.S. President Donald Trump, who announced the breakthrough, called it a different world moment as celebrations broke out across Israel and Gaza. However, key issues including Hamas's disarmament and Gaza's future governance remain unresolved, leaving the next phase of negotiations crucial to achieving lasting peace. For nearly 2 years, hostages square in Tel Aviv have been a place of grief and uncertainty. But on Thursday, it turned into a scene of celebration as news broke that Israel and Hamas had reached a deal to free the remaining hostages. Families wept with joy, embraced and sang as they awaited the return of their loved ones, ending an ordeal that began with Hamas' October 2023 attack. This announcement made by U.S. President Donald Trump was hailed across Israel as a moment of long-awaited relief and renewed hope for a nation scarred by 2 years of anguish. In Gaza, scenes of relief and celebration erupted overnight as Palestinians welcomed news of a ceasefire deal to end Israel's 2-year war on the enclave. Crowds poured into the street of Khan Yunis singing and waving flags, many calling it a historic moment after months of relentless bombardment and famine. Residents say they finally feel a gleam of hope for peace and humanitarian aid to resume. Meanwhile, world leaders have welcomed the Israel-Hamas peace deal announced by U.S. President Donald Trump, marking what many describe as a major breakthrough in the 2-year war in Gaza. Reactions poured in from around the world. Turkey, Egypt, and Qatar were praised for mediating this deal. France, the United Kingdom, and Germany also called it a step towards a lasting peace, while the United Nations vowed to help implement the accord and expand humanitarian aid. Leaders from Saudi Arabia, China, Japan, and Italy urged all sides to honor their commitment, calling the deal a vital opportunity to end the war and revive the two-state solution for peace in the Middle East. And Israel and Hamas are expected to sign a ceasefire and hostage deal. Global Affairs analyst Colin Tuweke and Bengani Fadi joins me to discuss this latest celebration in Tel Aviv. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us at this time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Right, Collins, let's start with you. This agreement is being hailed as the first phase of President Trump's initiative to end this war. From your own perspective, is this the breakthrough the international community has been waiting for?
Obviously, Olamide, the world has got to, greet this with a cautious optimism, as Israel and Hamas indeed agree to this first phase, the emphasis on first phase of a ceasefire and hostage exchange deal. Now, this could see hostages freed within days, okay, and an end to active hostilities in Gaza. This is the most serious breakthrough in more than 2 years of this mayhem, and the expectations are high. But I must say, from my perspective, that the devil is in the details. And what are these details? Implementation. The UN, like you cited, has vowed to see to implementation, but there is also trust to contend with, and accountability will determine whether this becomes a turning point or simply another fragile pause in the violence. So it's a bit of a wait and see. You can see that a ceasefire is not peace. Peace comes when justice, reconstruction, and dignity are secured. We are not there yet.
And over the past 2 years, we've seen numerous ceasefire proposals and diplomatic efforts come and go. Benga, what do you think sets this agreement apart? Do you think it's something that should be viewed as a diplomatic victory or a strategic surrender in that case?
Yeah, hi, thank you. I think it's, based on what you just said, I think it's actually a diplomatic victory. Number one, I think it's a personal win for President Trump as well. But like Mr. Collins said, this is actually a distance one. I think it's too early to call it a victory. I think it's a way forward. Number one. Also, because if you remember, 2020, I think we had a similar issue, or the first peace plan was made, and I think they had 72 hours to agree, but it was a no. It was a flat out no. We saw how that ended, and hostility continued either way. There's no issue of trust within each other. I think the other thing is we've got quite a lot at stake. We've got the hostages. There is pressure on President Netanyahu at this time. Israelis are calling for the release of families, etc. While on the other hand, I think Hamas has actually mostly been decapitated. If you look at the last strike, which was in Doha, in Qatar, we had a bunch of people killed, but none of them related to Hamas. So, but at the same time, again, if you think about who are you going to govern? Who's going to govern Palestine? Nobody wants to touch it. Only Palestine or Palestinians can govern themselves. But if you think about the way the world powers have been, powers shifting, and President Netanyahu is actually right there now, busy making more enemies. We got the European or the powers that be. They're all moving away from the side, not recognizing Palestine as a state. So yes, we could call it a kind of a diplomatic victory, but of course also we could also say this is a power shift that is happening on this side. But again, there's still a lot to be done. But I think I probably say we are a lot clearer and a lot closer than from where we've been traveling from.
And this current move seems more defined for Israel and Hamas in this sense. It's so interesting to see this latest trajectory. But there seems to be a notable shift in tone, perhaps a sense of cautious optimism so as not to spoil what's in place. But we've seen jubilation in sub-quarters. Many are saying the deal is far from being done. In your view, what factors would you say is giving this more traction than previous efforts?
Yeah, a few things from President Trump's tweets from the social. What he said is peace for all. He said equality for all. So he's looking at equal measure, which I think makes it fair, because I think the key pointer here is the initial time when the peace plan was released to Hamas. They said no, they didn't want to hear it. They want to go study. Hamas hasn't really got much leverage. All they have are these hostages, alive or dead. We hope they're alive. And for Hamas to now say they want it, I think that actually poses a big shift to the Palestinians. Also, if you remember, many years ago, when they asked Palestinians, who would you rather want to govern? Look, this was taken to the ballots. Majority of them voted for Hamas. So they want Hamas. And for Hamas to now say, yes, this is what we want, also the peace deal. Remember also, keep using the word remember, we have a 20-point plan, which is what President Trump is proposing. So there's a 20-point plan. We can build on this. Hamas wants it. Israel wants it. President Trump wants it. If all three can agree, I think the world will be better, and it will be a better place in that region. Remember, we are looking at the Middle East as a whole. We're not just talking about that little bit. If that area is fragmented, then of course, and we do have the powers that be in that area. We've got Egypt, we've got Qatar, Doha, Saudi Arabia. All of them are willing to support. The funds is going to come from there. They will support it, and they're happy. So I'm sure this reassurances has been there. Yes, the contours of this deal were not released, but the assurances must have been there, and that just makes it a little bit different, because we know Hamas, if they don't want the deal, they will tell you. Israel has been bombing all this while, but look, we still have these hostages. They're still right there. This is our leverage. You can do all you want. We're not releasing this thing. And of course, we also have the former UK Prime Minister, Tony Blair. This guy is so experienced, even though he's not been trusted on the home side. But on the other side, he's got the respect of all these regions. And if they could agree with former Prime Minister Tony Blair at the helm, I think we are making we're making a better progress than we are. And it looks like we can trust this. Regardless of what people say or think, President Trump has got a little bit of a win right here, I will say.
Collins, let's look at the viability of this plan. It's not just about ending the war. It's also about ensuring that whatever is agreed on favors both sides in terms of the prisoner exchanges. But we'll continue this conversation. You're still watching The World Now. We'll take a short break. We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us on World Now. We're still discussing the latest deal between Israel and Hamas. They have decided to make a peace deal. We'll still continue this conversation with Global Affairs Analyst Collins Uweke and Gbenga Onifadi. Gentlemen, thank you for staying with us through this conversation. Collins, I was talking to you about the fact that it's not just about ending the war, but perhaps what is being agreed on can favor both sides. Hostage and prisoner exchanges have once again played a central role in these negotiations. What precedent does this set for future conflicts?
Well, it sets the precedent that ultimately everything, boils down to diplomacy. And so the victory was delayed. Harsh languages have been flying around, and graves continue to be dug in Gaza. But ultimately, diplomacy, has won the day. And so when we deploy the term cautious optimism, it's a fancy way of expressing skepticism, and that is very much justified. But you see, this deal has a few new ingredients to it. External guarantees, a step-by-step mechanism, and clearer sequencing of obligations. The political context has also changed, and I believe Gbenga alluded to that. Israel faces growing domestic pressure over the hostages. Hamas faces severe humanitarian and political isolation. Both sides need a pause, not yesterday, but today. So the question isn't trust, it's verification. Whether guarantors can enforce compliance and keep the parties accountable. So ceasefires fail when they rely on just goodwill. They hold when they rely on structure, monitoring, but also enforcement. In this particular case, and that is, coming directly to your question as to why, people should, have trust and faith in this. This particular deal has all of those three components in place: structure, monitoring, and then enforcement. So let's see how it plays out. I think that's the bottom line.
I would like Gbenga to react to that. Gbenga, beyond the initial ratification that we are seeing, what do you think will be the major obstacle that could perhaps derail this peace plan? A lot of persons have begun celebrating in Tel Aviv. Are there realistic enforcement mechanisms to ensure long-term adherence for both parties?
I think that's very, very difficult because, again, jumping on what Mr. Nweke said, so you've got, we've got junior Hamases, which is going to be raised right now, because this is going to be lasting memory. We know this is probably one of the biggest shocks that they've ever received, in a lifetime. So, like I said again, Hamas or Palestine will be governed by Palestinians. I don't think we will have, we can have external monitors, but again, when it comes to governing, Palestinians will be governed by Palestinians. That's number one. Number two, like I said again, nobody wants to touch you with a batch pole, so they will get support. But you've got kids now, which are mostly orphans. Some of them, of course, been able to be repatriated to other countries for treatment or to be able to continue their lives. But ultimately, this will be lasting memory. So we can have a fragile peace. I believe Israel has stopped the further expansion based on what they say. They would have to withdraw now the troops back to Israel. So we will have, unfortunately, we're going to have junior Palestinians, and again, some of them with revenge in their mind, no matter what this would happen, because Palestine want to be a state, and eventually they gain recognition. They have to build their own force. So that's another thing right there. It's an enormous moment. It's a big watershed moment. But people in that area, of course, we want this horror to end. I think it will come to an end. But ultimately, Israel is still going to be sleeping with an eye closed, because it's only been 2 years. We've had over, close to 100,000 people being killed, 65,000 based on according to record. But again, like we said, it's going to be fragile. But ultimately, both sides still have a little bit of horror in their hearts. Just in case anything might go loose. But enforcing will be very difficult. Don't think people want the boots on the ground externally. But ultimately, we'll say, Georgia will prevail over World War ultimately. But again, it's still very, very going to be fragile, and it will remain like that for some time.
Let's talk about unresolved matters. Perhaps there is no pathway as to ensuring that key issues such as Hamas's disarmament and the future leadership in Gaza is being addressed. This is leaving the next phase of negotiations, which is, crucial to achieving lasting peace. It is leaving this fragile. How do you think this will be addressed in the next phase?
Thinking about the future going forward, if Hamas release these hostages, they've got no more leverage, okay? One thing we've got to understand is Israel's been there. They've been doing all these bombings. They could not find all these, all these contours, all these areas that Hamas have built. I don't think they will open up totally, but they've got nothing right now. They will be rebuilding. They're not going to put all their cards on the table. Of course, everybody wants hostages. I think what people are celebrating right now is the end of hostilities, full stop. Are we guaranteeing future? Not really. What does it look like in future? I think there's going to be a rebuilding process. Kind of forgot what the question was. There will be a rebuilding process on both sides. I think there will be a very harsh difference between the two. I believe they tend to have exchanges. People work there. Lots of, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians living in Israel and vice versa and working there as well. But I think there will be a key shift. There will be a key barrier on both sides. But ultimately, they'll be focused on building. And again, enmity is still going to be there, unfortunately.
Collins, let's talk about what this really means for President Trump. A lot of persons have been sending thank you, congratulations to President Trump, who promised to end the war. And it seems like there is a pathway, a definite pathway at this time. What does this really mean for the world's perception of Trump's leadership?
Well, I believe Wenga may have already sent him a congratulatory message, because obviously he's one of those that believe that the guy has done it here. Well, the thing is this, no one really wins in this type of war. But if the ceasefire holds, civilians, particularly women and children, will be the only winners. Politically, both Israel and Hamas may try to frame, victory, Israel by recovering hostages, Hamas by surviving and retaining their relevance. But the true measure of success is not who gains ground, but actually who restores life. In war, even the victor limps home in clutches. In peace, everyone rises. And I think this is what has to be remembered.
All right, gentlemen, that's a fine place to leave the conversation for now. This meeting, the outcome of that deal is expected to be discussed later today. We'll wait out to see the outcome of that and how cooperative Israel and Hamas and other parties will be to this peace deal. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us at this time. Global Affairs Analyst Collins Weke and Benga Onifade. Thank you for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me, Olamide.
Thanks for having me too.
And that's it on The World Now. Thanks for watching.